Hello everybody, thank you very much for watching. My name is Don. I want to, talk about, continue the discussion about Nibiru, Planet X as we call it. And I believe that the flood on Noah's time, the deluge that covered the earth when God brought judgment in the time of Noah, was connected with the planet X, Nibiru, that God used. I'll explain more about it, and I will use Jasher, the lost book of the Bible, to give a bit more details, that is not in the Bible. I'll read, a little bit of Noah's flood in Genesis first, to start with. In the book of Genesis about the flood, it says in chapter 6 of Genesis, verse 4, the Nephilim, giants, proved to be in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of the true God, that's the fallen angels who came down, continued to have relationships with the daughters of men, and they bore sons to them, and they were the mighty ones who were of old, the men of fame. Consequently, God, Yahweh, saw that the badness of man was abundant in the earth, and every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only bad all the time. So then it goes on to say in verse 13, after that God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, because the earth is full of violence, and as a result of them, not only wicked men, but the giants that were evil back then. The result of, when human women went with fallen angels, they created giants, and see, the earth is full of violence, and as a result of He'll bringing them to ruin together with the earth. And it goes on to say, make yourself an ark. And then, as for me, that's verse 17, as for me, here I am bringing the deluge of water upon the earth, to bring to ruin all the flesh in which the force of life is active from under the heavens. Everything that is in the earth will expire. And it goes on here. And in the 600th year, verse 11, of Noah's life, in the second month, on the 17th day of the month, and on the day of on this day, all the springs of the vast watery deep were broken open, and the floodgates of heaven were opened, and the downpour upon the earth went on for 40 days and 40 nights. Because of the wickedness back then. Now, I want to talk a bit about the background of how the earth was like before Noah's flood, and how Planet X, I believe, was connected to this flood that God used. God used Planet X to create the flood. Back then, I believe, the earth had only rivers and seas, not oceans. Right, so one thing, that was before the flood. I believe the earth had only rivers and seas, not oceans. Only after, when God caused the waters from beneath and heaven to deluge the earth. Because there's waters above and waters below, that Genesis says, the Bible says. And all the flood, that 40 days and 40 nights, as it flooded the earth, it created the oceans. I believe, and many people have said, that God used Planet X to, say, cast a huge meteorite, either that it's dragged along from the asteroid belts, and it cast it down to the earth. This is because time for God to bring judgment on the earth, as he will do again. So I believe that Planet X, with its tail, because Planet X has got, is it planets and a comet 2 in 1, it's got a tail dragging. In this case, it basically first showered the earth, puncturing the water firmament, the firmaments in heaven. It created it punctured holes in the firmament, or the dome, whatever you want to call it, above, and the water beneath the earth. And then the second time, it cast a massive 110 mile, that's what a few people have said, 110 mile diameter meteorite or asteroid was cast onto the earth. I think this is the time of now. This is about, I think there's a 110 mile crater in the Gulf of Mexico. So 110 mile diameter crater was left by this huge meteorite. I think it's a 110 mile meteorite struck the earth, and it caused this huge crater in the Gulf of Mexico area, cast by Nibiru. And when it did so, it shook the whole earth. I mean, if you don't want to believe me, it might not say it in the Bible, but in the book of Jasher, it makes it more clearer. And this huge 110 mile meteorite or asteroid hit the earth, thrown here by Nibiru, and which is God's judgment. It slammed into the earth, and my brother Simon did a great video about this. I will leave a link. The earth shook, the whole earth shook with this impact in the Gulf of Mexico, 110 mile diameter. And when it did so, this caused a pole shift. That says it's a chain of events. The Nibiru cast this huge meteorite, slammed into the earth, and it caused a tilt, a pole shift. The whole earth shook when it did it, and tilted the earth about, someone said, about 23.5 degrees tilt. That was a pole shift, which before the flood, before that happened, there was no seasons like we have now, obviously. It just was one season. Since it became tilted to 23.5 because of the impact, huge impact, this huge comet, asteroid slamming into the earth, it tilted it 23.5. So you got seasons, and you got a worldwide earthquake. And I will read a bit of the book of Jasher, and if I read 2 Samuel 1, it shows that the book of Jasher is okay, you know, it's acceptable. Let me read that. Before I read a bit of the book of Jasher in 2 Samuel of the Bible, to prove that Jasher is acceptable, 2 Samuel chapter 1 verse 18 says, "And to say that the sons of Judah should be taught the bow, look, it is written in the book of Jasher." So Samuel actually acknowledged it, the book of Jasher. And now we read a bit about Jasher. brings more information about this worldwide earthquake, which is not mentioned in Genesis. So this is in the lost book of Jasher, chapter 6, verse 11, about being a great worldwide earthquake. And on that day, the Lord caused the whole earth to shake. This is about Noah's flood. And what I will do, I'll read from verse 1, so it gives you a picture. It's very interesting reading. A bit more about the background. At that time, after the death of Methuselah, the Lord said to Noah, this is the beginning of chapter 6 of Jasher, "Go thou with thy household into the ark, before I will gather to thee all the animals on earth, the beasts of the field, and the fowls of the air, and they shall all come and surround the ark." Well, God let the animals go instinctively to Noah. "And thou shalt go and seat thyself by the doors of the ark, and all the beasts, the animals, and the fowls shall assemble and place themselves before thee. And such of them as shall come and crouch before thee, shalt thou take and deliver into the hands of thy sons, who shall bring them into the ark, and that they will stand before thee thou shalt leave." And the Lord brought this about on the next day, and the animals, beasts, and fowls came in great multitudes and surrounded the ark. And Noah went and seated himself by the door of the ark, and all the flesh that crouched before him he brought into the ark, and all that stood before him he left upon earth. And this is it. It goes on to say, "And the lioness came, and with her 2 whelps, male and female, and 3 crouched before Noah, and the 2 whelps rose up against the lioness and smote her, and made her flee from her place. And she went away, and they returned to their places, and crouched upon the earth before Noah. And the lioness ran away and stood in place of the lions. And Noah saw this and wondered greatly, and he rose and took the 2 whelps and brought them into the ark. And Noah brought into the ark from all living creatures that were upon the earth, so that there was none left but which Noah brought into the ark. 2 and 2 came to Noah into the ark, but from the clean animals and clean fowls he brought 7 couples, as God had commanded him. And all the animals the Lord caused the whole, and that's it. And all the animals and beasts and fowls were still there, and they surrounded the ark every place, and the rain had not descended till 7 days after. So basically, when they went in the ark, this is it. It started to rain about 7 days after. Is it? And on verse 11. And on that day, the Lord caused the whole earth to shake, and the sun to be darkened, and the foundations of the world raged, and the whole earth was moved violently. And the lightning flashed, and thunders roared, and all the fountains in the earth were broken, such as was not known to the inhabitants before. And God did this mighty act in order to terrify the sons of men, that there might be no more evil upon the earth. So you see, Jasher makes it a bit more, gives a bit more detail. God caused the whole earth to shake. The whole earth was moved violently, and the sun was darkened. This is it, because of the evil upon the earth. Does that not sound exactly like Revelation? God's going to do that again. I believe he's going to use Nibiru again. And if you remember Revelation chapter 6, the 6th seal, it talks about the whole earth shaking, and there's going to be a pole shift, and the sun is darkened. That's exactly what it says here. And the whole earth was moved violently, the sun was darkened, and the whole earth shook. So that's the 6th seal event was caused in a time of Noah. But you can imagine how big this comet or meteorite was that was cast down when Nibiru passed with its tail, with its debris tail, and casting this thing, it's quite a big meteorite, because the one in what do you call it, Arizona, is only 0.7 miles, and that's a huge crater. But you can imagine 110 mile diameter crater. But after all, so before the flood, so after the flood, you had oceans, because you might say, where's all the water gone if the whole earth flooded? Well, you got oceans. That's where the water went, because there was no oceans before. And also the crust of the earth was thicker, I found out. There's about, it took off when the impact of that huge comet or asteroid hit the earth. The whole earth shook, caused a pole shift. It created seasons which it never had before the flood, but also it took off 71% of the crust, and where also the what do you call it? It created that before this impact, there was one huge landmass, I believe. One huge landmass, and it caused the continents to to move. In other words, to displace. The earth cracked like an egg, basically. Before there was one huge landmass, I believe, called Pangaea. I believe when this huge impact hit, what it did, it split it in two: Laurasia and Gondwana land. So you got two giant land masses. So that's what I believe. It split like an egg. Let's see if there's anything else I want to add. That's what I believe. It was Nibiru. God used Nibiru, which helped slam a huge asteroid meteorite, 110 mile, which hit the Earth. And as Jasher shows a bit more detail, the whole Earth shook. The whole Earth, dislodging the Earth, causing a tilt. So you have seasons, and you have oceans which weren't there before, and the continents cracked like an egg. So one continent, Pangaea, split into two, and then eventually drifted apart. But it's exactly what's going to happen again. God's using Nibiru again. Insiders know when it's arriving, and I did a video about that, when they believe roughly it's coming. And God's going to bring judgment again, but this time it won't be water, because he promised it won't flood the earth with water, but it will use fire. Can you not see that earth is already starting to heat up, burn up? He will, eventually it will scorch the earth, but he's going to cause another sixth seal event, just like it did in Noah's time. And let me read chapter 6 of Revelation. This is what's going to happen. It could be any year now, And I saw when they opened the sixth seal, and a great earthquake occurred, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the entire moon became as blood, and the stars of the heaven fell to the earth, as when a fig tree shaken by a high wind cast its unripe figs, and the heaven departed as a scroll that is being rolled up, and every mountain and every island were removed from their places. And it says all that people are trying to hide in caves to try to escape, but they can't, because the great day of the wrath of the Lord has come, and who can stand? So it sounds exactly what happened back then in the time of the flood. So another sixth seal event, it says there, this is obviously a cosmic event. It says here, the stars of heaven, or meteorites or asteroids, fell to the earth. And then it says here, the heaven departed as a scroll. That's a pole shift. The sun became dark, and there was a great earthquake. This sounds exactly the same as Jasher chapter 6. The whole earth shook. So and so what happened? I'll give you a bit more detail. I'll suggest to read a bit more. Well, it's quite interesting. Jasher chapter 6. To give a bit more detail what happens. I'm going to read a bit more Jasher. Let me see. And all you see here, the earth shook and carrying on, and still the Son of Men would not return from their evil ways, even though it started to rain on the seventh day. Even though the earth shook violently, that all the sons of the men would not return from their evil ways, and they increased the anger of the Lord at the time, and did not even direct their hearts to this. And at the end of 7 days, in the 600th year of the life of Noah, so after the seventh day, the waters of flood were upon the earth. So after they went in the ark, it locked up, and 7 days later it started to rain, and then it rained upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And Noah and his household and all the living creatures that were with him came into the ark on account of the waters of the flood, and the Lord shut him in. And listen to this. And all the sons of the men that were left upon the earth became exhausted through evil on account of the rain, for the rains were coming more violently upon the earth, and the animals and beasts were still surrounding the ark. And listen to this. And the sons of men assembled together, about 700,000 men and women, and they came unto Noah to the ark. So 700,000 evil men tried to come to the ark of Noah, and they called to Noah, saying, Open for us, that we may come to thee in the ark, and wherefore shall we, or we will die? Let us go in. 700,000 men and women. And Noah with his loud voice answered them from the ark, saying, Have you not all rebelled against the Lord, and said that he does not exist? And therefore the Lord brought upon you this evil, and to destroy and cut you off from the face of the earth. Is not this the thing that I spoke to you of 120 years back, and you would not hearken to the voice of the Lord? And now do you desire to live upon earth? And they said to Noah, We are ready to return to the Lord, only open for us that we may live and not die. And Noah answered them, saying, Behold, now that you see the trouble of your souls, you wish to return to the Lord. Why did you not return during these 120 years, which the Lord granted you as a determined period? But now you come and tell me this on account of the troubles of your souls, that also the Lord will not listen to you, neither will he give ear to you on this day, so that you will not succeed in your wishes. And the sons of men approached in order to break into the ark, to come in on account of the rain, for they could not bear the rain upon them. And the Lord sent all the beasts and animals that stood around the ark, and the beasts empowered them and drove them from their place. And every man went his way, and they again scattered themselves upon the face of the earth. So that's some examples. You see, 700,000 people, evil men and women, told Noah, can we come in? He said, well, now you want to come, because you didn't listen to God's warning message, and you remained evil even up to now. And now you want to go in, even though I preached 120 years. No. And God shut, God didn't want to hear them. So, he drove them away with the wild animals. So, please, listen. Don't be like these 700,000 people. Don't listen to warnings. The signs all around that God's judgment is going to come soon. Don't wait until it's too late. When God's judgment is coming. Don't be like these 700,000 who tried to break in. Because judgment will come suddenly, like it did back then. Because the rain, it never rains before the flood. They were only mocking Noah. So what are you building a boat for? There's no water. That's it. It came. It took them by surprise. Let me read scripture in Matthew 24. It says, Matthew 24:36, concerning that day and hour nobody knows, neither the angels of the heavens nor the Son, but only the Father. For just as the days of Noah were, so the presence of the Son of Man will be. For as they were in those days before the flood, eating and drinking, men marrying, and women being given in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and they took no note until the flood came and swept them all away. So too the presence of the Son of Man will be. So you see, they took no note until it came, until the flood came and swept them away. It was just, a shock to them. Just a surprise. This is how it's going to be. But the signs are there. That's, the Lord's coming. As it says in Matthew 24, when will the sign of your coming? Matthew 24 it says, and in answer Jesus said to them, because the disciples approached him, tell us, when will these things be? What will be the sign of your presence and the conclusion of the system of things, the last days when you're coming to bring judgment on wicked mankind? In answer, Jesus said to them, look out that nobody misleads you, for many will come on the basis of my name, saying, I'm the Christ, and will mislead many. And you are going to hear of wars and reports of wars. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Isn't wars being conflicts raging in the Middle East? And there will be food shortages. Isn't that happening now? And earthquakes in one place after another. They're getting more frequently, earthquakes. And all these things are a beginning of pangs of distress. Because these are signs of his coming. So just like a physical ark, the wicked 500,000 people, 700,000 wicked people try to get in. But God closed. It says that God closed the ark. Why? Because he knew, Noah could be soft. He could feel sympathy for them, and by opening the door, so he closed it. Just like then there was a physical ark. Now, don't be locked out or closed. Don't be because of their wickedness. They were left outside of the physical ark. Don't you be left outside from the spiritual ark. That means, what that means is you could be left out in a spiritual ark, in a sense, if you do not believe in God, or don't put faith in Jesus Christ, and don't repent of your evil ways, you will be left outside when God's judgment comes. So please, repent now, before it's too late, and put faith in Jesus Christ. As John 14:6 says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me, Jesus Christ says. Thank you very much.